I think I've had no, but
Soup? Seriously? Soup.
Are you ready?
Oh, yes.
Are we recording?
Yes, we are recording.
Oh, okay, cool.
We don't been recording,
All right.
sis.
Okay.
Welcome
To
Good
Soup.
Soup.
Pew, 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 pew. We welcome you back to our airwaves this
we
week.
welcome you back to our
Bach.
airwaves.
my
come-
biggest birthday.
My biggest birthday.
So it's currently August. My
Mhm.
birthday is at the end of June.
Yeah.
And I was telling Chris today how excited I am for my next birthday.
Yeah.
Next June. Because it's going to be my golden birthday, which is my biggest
It's
birthday.
Biggest birthday.
I was trying to tell her that it's my biggest birthday, and I accidentally said biggest, and now that we're going to say that forever.
Yeah, it's now
just
part of our friendship, in our friendship vernacular.
because
so
once you say something wrong, it never goes away.
it really doesn't.
In true friendships,
Honestly.
in best friendships,
Yeah.
you can never live down an incorrect pronunciation.
Yeah, in the spirit of Miss Broski, if you don't have friends around you like that, they're not your real friends. So
Okay, so if you don't know who Brittany Broski is, she's like an internet personality,
Mhm.
and she said something the other day that just tickled me so much, and that's what Chris is quoting very loosely. I don't
Yeah.
even know if it's actually
Right,
what she
yeah.
said, but she basically was like, everyone wants friends that like you can just be yourself around, that don't judge you.
Mhm.
She's like, but the real friends are the ones that you're embarrassed to be like to tell what's really going on, like when you're doing things you're not supposed to, when you're hooking up with that guy again that you know is bad for you.
Yep.
If you're embarrassed to tell your friends about it, that means they're good
They're
friends.
good friends.
That means that they hold you to a higher standard and that you know that they want the best for you.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I think she's just being really funny. But I
Yeah.
also think there's a little bit of truth in that.
I also think that too.
Hmm.
You need to have a good mix. Like, I think you kind of need the friends that you're comfortable enough with to do anything or say anything, pretty much. Like, nothing's off limits.
Mhm.
There are minimal boundaries. And then you have the other friends where you're like, oh, crap. If they know about this,
They're gonna kill me.
Yep.
But in a loving way.
In a loving way, of course. Yes. So, yeah. Which, honestly, that kind of leads me into the topic of accountability.
Oh.
So we started talking about this very briefly earlier today because we were talking about how it is good to have friends who hold you accountable to things. And I have always struggled with accountability because I agree with the idea of it. And I think you need it. And I think humans require someone else to keep them accountable to things. But I don't know if I am broken, but I just feel like accountability doesn't really work for me.
Well, I think you have to have a certain sense of shame for accountability to work.
Like,
And
right?
not that you don't have a sense of, but
Like, do I just not care about things? Like, do I not care about?
I think there's just
don't know
certain things that you get comfortable with being like, yeah, I suck.
Like, I just do this, and
And I
that's what
just
I
do
do,
this.
and it doesn't matter who I ask. Like, I've
Mhm.
asked people who I'm like, this would be so uncomfortable if I had to tell XYZ person that I was doing this again.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
No,
Like, it
there
wears
are no-
off after.
Yes.
Like, it has an expiration date of when it wears off.
There
for
are
me.
no limits to the amount of embarrassment that I will put myself through.
Like, and I'm just like, so what does that mean about me then? Because I think, yes, in order for accountability to work, you have to have two willing parties.
Mm-hmm.
So in my heart and in my intentions, I'm believing that I'm wanting to change. But yet, I guess evidence would point to, like, maybe not. Because the accountability thing, I'm like, I'll just keep being honest with you and telling you I'm screwing up. But when you tell me to do something different, I'm probably not going to do anything
because then the discomfort of telling them loses its discomfort when you're just used to doing it. And I think you kind of numb out a little bit and you're just like, yep, this is it. I'm doing it. Or like, I'm not doing it or whatever it is.
So like, what does that say about me?
I think
as a person.
Here's a hot take.
Yes,
on
spicy soup.
I think you are secretly not so secretly rebellious.
Ooh.
I think that you're very rebellious. And
seriously?
Yes. And I think that that's something that 2 or 3 years into our friendship now, I'm just now learning about you, because it's not like a dominant person. Like there's people who are just like, I'm going to go against, like, I don't know if anybody listening knows about the Enneagram.
Ooh.
But like my dad is an 8 and he's really into the Enneagram, and he's always talking about his need to be against. Okay. And it's a very like prominent part of his personality. And you're not there. Like you don't have this constant need to be against.
Right.
But it's interesting, just I've noticed a pattern of if you were directly told to do something specifically for your own benefit. It's not even like, hey, could you do this for me?
Right.
Or, hey, can you be in charge of this? And you're like, no, like I don't want to be told to do that. If someone is trying to tell you something for your own good, you're immediately like, no, I don't want to do that. So like, even if you were inclined to do it before, if someone says it to you, you're just like, no.
That is so interesting, because I don't know if you remember this or not, but we were talking about how we have similar patterns in our life, but they come from different like tendencies in us. Yeah. And
did we talk about that on the pod or just in our personal life?
We may have. But
I don't remember.
In case we didn't, what did you say? Like yours was more out of.
So we were talking about, I think, more about procrastination, which I think goes hand in hand with accountability. Yeah. But I procrastinate and don't do things more out of an exhaustion or overwhelm of like there's too much and I'll just never be able to do it well. And so I'm just not even going to try. Whereas like I feel like you do get overwhelmed. Like I'm not saying you don't experience that, but it seems more like because you're pushing yourself to do it and you're like, no, Chris, you have to do it. It's like the other side of you is then like, no, don't tell me what to do.
Screw you.
like I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. And so it's like we have the same issues with like procrastination, getting things done, but it comes from like a different emotional like block kind of.
Which is so interesting because
you can,
yes, please do.
You can cut this out because this might be like a too personal story.
Listen, I think. What did we talk about the one time where it was like, that's, okay.
But it's from last year when you were like not doing so hot.
Okay.
And you had like gone to Evan's apartment to work out in the morning, I think. Okay. And he like, I don't remember the exact details, but he had like filled up your water bottle for you. And like you were getting in your car to go home. He was like, hey, remember to drink your water. And you were driving home and you told me that you like opened the car door and dumped the water out because you were so mad that he would tell you to drink your water. And I'm like, that's kind of what I'm talking about.
I forgot about that. Okay, yeah. So, this was like in the throes of like me not doing well.
I don't think you're like that way all the time, but I think it's part of that manifesting in a negative time of your life.
Yeah, I think that is like a point in time where it was just really, really obvious. He's always trying to get me to drink water. Stand-up guy, right?
How dare he?
And I dropped him up, and I just wasn't feeling good that day in myself. Like it was nothing he did or said, there was no rational reason for why I was feeling what I was feeling, but I was just feeling it. And so right before he leaves, he like consolidated these like loose plastic bottles I had in the car into like a different bottle I had. And he was like just trying to be nice. And he's like, remember, like, drink your water today and stuff. And I don't even know what turned in me, but I felt rage. Like, when I tell you, I could have probably run someone over with my car in that moment. I probably could have. I don't know. It's like the most irrational fly off the handle.
Just for context, also, when she told me about this, I think that day that it happened, it was under the context of, Julia, something's wrong with me. What happened? Like, she wasn't like, can you believe that he did this to me and this is my response? Like, she was like, immediately recognized today's not a good day.
This
for me.
is wild. Like, what is this? Because like I was seething, just do you ever get feelings and like when you're mad, you normally know like what you're mad about. You don't just feel madness. Do you know what I'm talking about? Can you see it in my eyes?
I'm like a little scared right now. No.
Or like you just like feel grief, but you don't know what you're like feeling grief about.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else can resonate with that, but I
think in my mind, I categorize it more as like just general relational angst. I think in that time it was more of like your life kind of things happening.
Right.
But there's definitely times when like Ian will piss me off about something and I know it's not really about that. It's just this kind of like, I don't even really know why I'm upset with him or like
triggers.
Yeah, I'm just like grumpy about it for some reason.
Yeah.
And I know it's irrational.
But then I was like, just for some reason funneled all of this anger into my water bottle. And I stopped the car. I opened my door. I like twist the cap off and I like throw it like on the ground. And I just like empty the bottle on the ground very menacingly. And then
show him.
And then I sit in the car, like, just, like, feeling like I want to scream. And then I'm like, yeah, like, what the heck is wrong with me?
So why do you think that is? Like, what? Because it clearly isn't about, he told me to drink water, F him.
Right. It is this weird, like, little other me that exists. The enemy is the inner me.
The little gremlin Chris.
Seriously, though, it is like this weird thing that genuinely, after you said that to me a couple weeks ago about how you're like, I think I do my stuff out of just pure overwhelmingness, and you told me that you feel like I do mine out of this sense of rebellion. I actually took that into my therapy session.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and because it did resonate with me. I was like, I do feel like there is this part of me that like won't allow me to move forward, or like it won't allow me to accomplish things. And so I've been talking with my therapist about it, like, yeah, like I do feel like kind of this sense of rebellion, and she is trying to help me understand more about it. And the question we keep kind of coming back to is, how is it serving you? And because she's boiling it down to the idea that there's probably this unmet need that I either have or had in the past, or something that didn't get met or isn't getting met, and somehow this rebellious part of me comes out to try to meet that need, when in reality it's like that's actually not gonna be a good way to meet the need, but it's all I know how to do. And so it's like, until I can identify how that part of me is like serving me, then I don't know what to do about it. But I think it has gotten a little better, and I think that there is some breakthrough of like, oh, actually this kind of goes into this thing at church like 2 weeks ago. I absolutely like fell apart.
We never talked about
it. Yeah.
I looked over and I saw that I looked over one time towards the end and I saw that you'd been crying, and no offense, I was like a normal Sunday. Yeah. Like I was not worried about it.
Okay, checks.
Everything
checks out.
What I'm trying to say is no immediate red flags. I was just like, oh, like it was a good service.
I very often will get emotional.
I saw you stand up and book it out, and then I'm like, oh, she must like have left something in the car, and then you never came back in. And I was like, what's happening?
Whoop, whoop,
yeah. And then I texted you about it, and you were just like, nope. And I was like, okay, we're not going to talk about that. So
I know.
We have not talked about this.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it because so
how does this feed into each other?
Yes, this is one of those moments where I don't even think what was being said from stage like genuinely really had anything to do with
That
why I
happened to me
reacted
this
so
Sunday.
strongly.
I was like
right?
crying, and it had nothing to do with what Tyler was saying.
Like-
It was purely like my own conversation with God, and then I was just like,
He said something about like you have to choose like how you are gonna operate in your relationship with God, and like from then on I was just like a filleted piece of tuna sitting there like, oh my gosh, I can't move.
cut
Like
me open.
seriously. And so I started feeling really emotional, and I really think this was like a moment where the Holy Spirit was just like used something to like open up this little door, and then it was like, oh no, everything is happening. Like
It's like you're almost like pooping your pants in public. Like, it's
for real,
so
like
terrible.
it's coming, it's happening, it's happening,
It's
right
happening. I can't hide it.
Seriously. Like for real though, because I genuinely was like I was having to hold back like heaving sobs in the middle of church while Tyler's like doing some illustration lesson, and I'm just like.
Tyler's probably like wearing like an outfit, like a raincoat.
He's wearing like a raincoat and rain boots, and I'm just like, breathe in, breathe out, like it's fine. And so I was getting to the point where we were getting near the end of service, and it was not subsiding. And so I, at that moment, realized I had a choice to make. I could either suck it in and like kind of press pause on this moment and act quote unquote normal. Like I could, go about my normal business after church, talk to people, maybe talk about lunch or whatever. And then like maybe revisit this thing or maybe not. Like, cause like sometimes when you don't ride the wave, you don't know when it's coming back. You don't know if you can really get back into that space again. So I was like, I could either do that, or if I leave while he's praying, then I can just go to the car and I can kind of like stay here for a second and see like what this is all about, because this is just weird. And so that's what I ended up doing. I just thought, you know what, like I don't want to, like I feel like this is important and I don't want to miss out on it. So I asked for the keys to Evan's car as Tyler was praying the last time, and just got up and went. And so it was this weird, like, descent of just this, like, oh my gosh, like, kind of marrying these two parts. Because, like, we've been talking about that in therapy, too, is, like, kind of integrating this, who I feel like I was and who I am now. And, like, because I do feel like there were two, like, separate parts to my childhood. Because I had, like, some trauma back then. And so it's, like, I have that side of what my childhood was, and then I have like a different side, and like they don't coexist like simultaneously in my head. It's like, oh, this is this part, and then we switch over to this part. And I feel like I still kind of do that now, where it's like I kind of compartmentalize, or like I'm this person here, but then I'm this person here. And
gotcha.
And so I think it was like this kind of first step to like integrating these two people and holding like both things in my hands at the same time. So it was wild. And it's funny how that can all precipitate from like a seemingly random comment, and then you're just like, here we go.
Yeah.
Down the rabbit hole. So yeah, but I think, I don't know, like I think the rebellion part is maybe like something I developed to feel like I could survive, and I just never saw it that way. Or like maybe it's like part of this kind of like quote unquote other me that exists, and like I just haven't integrated it all yet, so it still is able to kind of like just kick me off course a lot and stuff. I don't know, it is weird, but I
have a little bit of like self-sabotage too.
Yes.
And so I feel like the rebellion kind of works with the self-sabotage to like.
It does. And I think what I'm finding out is that functions a lot out of just like fear of, if I never actually do the thing, then I never have to be disappointed, or I never have to accept the reality that I couldn't actually do what I thought I could do or wanted to do. And so if I just keep like getting in my own way, then I can always say I have really good intentions, but I never actually have to like prove or disprove the results. And I think that's just, based out of fear of like,
Yeah.
I don't know what the future holds, and I don't know if I can do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we shouldn't even try it.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people would say, well, the remedy to that would be then accountability. Just find someone to keep you accountable to,
but I don't want
to meet your goals and to do all these things. And I'm like, it literally doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
It has never made any adverse impact, positive or negative, on my life to have to have a distinct accountability partner, and to have like kind of loosely like, hey, we kind of want to go this way. So and I'm like, I don't know what that is. Like, is that
something I'm working on in myself? This is a little bit of a switch, because I'm in the same boat and I don't know how to fix it either. Because one of the things I'm working on within myself is like, because I do feel like, oh, the response to me being so just blatantly procrastinating and not doing the things I said I would do, the reaction is to like force myself into doing it somehow. And so accountability is kind of a way to force yourself.
Right.
Like, I don't know, like for me, like I have a problem with screen time. And so like I paid for an app that blocks all my social media, and you can't bypass it unless you delete the app.
Yeah.
And like all this stuff to like try to force myself to do the thing. And it's like, I would be on a diet, and I would force myself to not buy anything sugary or whatever, which isn't a terrible idea. I'm not saying any of these are bad things.
Right.
But I'm kind of pivoting in this season of my life to, if I'm not, I guess those things don't really address the heart of my issue.
Right.
Like just forcing myself to correct my behavior doesn't produce long-term change in me.
Yeah.
Like I'll just delete the app. I'll just make an extra trip to the store to buy the thing.
Right.
I'll just not do whatever it is. And like right now I'm kind of working on like how to train myself to just be motivated enough to do it. Like I don't even really know how to describe it, but like one of the things that I've been working really hard at is going to the gym. I feel like every podcast we've had, I'm talking about how I'm always going to the gym.
And you should, because it's a really good,
but it's the first thing that I've really been successful at in a long time.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I'm trying to use that
Brag
as like
about that ish.
I'm trying to figure out like, well, why is this working, and how do I make the other things work?
Oh,
and
I like that.
It's not, I haven't figured it out yet, but part of the reason why I think that my mentality around going to the gym has worked for me is because I don't feel like I have to do it, but I want to do it because I know that no one else is going to do it for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like I'm always talking about how I'm going to start exercising and I never do. So like it has to be now. And it's like, I've just gotten to the point where I've failed enough times and I'm sick of failing enough that it motivates me of like, all right, like if I'm going to be successful ever, I've got to start doing it right now.
Yeah.
And like today. And that doesn't mean I'm good and do it every day.
Right.
But I have kind of reached a point where it's like, all right, no one's going to force you to do anything. You can live the rest of your life and never set foot in a gym.
Right.
And that's fine.
If
like,
you want to make that choice, you can make that choice. Right.
A bad thing. Like it just is what it is. It's not a bad thing.
Right.
But it's also like, well, if I ever want to be this person, I have to pick a time to start doing it.
Right.
And it's just kind of that like shift in mindset, I feel like, of like, I don't have to do this. Like, but also I, for some reason, am waiting for something to happen. I'm waiting for me to just magically change. I'm waiting for this whatever to happen to me to change my life. And it's like, oh, like my life's not going to change. I can literally live the rest of my life living my days exactly the same as I'm living them now.
Right.
And that would happen. Like, and that I don't even know how to really describe it, but that kind of scared me a little bit.
Right.
Of like, cause I think I just kind of was operating under the assumption that one day this desire to be different would just kind of birth itself in me. And that I would just all of a sudden have the motivation to do all the things I never wanted to do before. And it just kind of was like, oh, someday I'm going to turn 50 and then 60. And I could be exactly the same as I am now if I don't start doing something. You know, like I could be exactly the same. nothing's stopping me from keeping on gaining weight. That's the other thing, is I've gained a lot of weight in the last couple of years, and you hit a certain weight and you're like, I never thought I'd get this heavy.
Right.
It just seemed impossible.
Right.
It just seemed like that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And then it happens and you realize, oh, this doesn't have to stop.
Right.
Like there's no rule.
If I can get here, then I can get
right.
there,
There's no rule that says you will never get above XYZ pounds.
There's no invisible line that you can't not cross. Like, you cannot cross it.
And I think I just was operating under this sort of immature thing of like, well, someday I'll just get there.
Yeah.
And somehow I'll magically just be protected from all of these things. And I just realized that I 100% could live my life exactly this way and never change. And I think there's some fear in that, but there's also some, like, I think you could make an argument that it's like your value isn't in your behaviors and your actions and what you do, and it's like I wouldn't be any less worthy of anything if I did stay the same.
Right.
But it's like, do I want that?
Right.
Like, do I really want that for myself?
If you have the capability and the opportunity to grow, like, yeah, like, do you want to take it or not?
Right. Like I think for the first time in my life, like, it's been enough to actually make me want to do it and actually do it in this area. Again, I'm trying to figure out how to apply that to other areas.
What do they call that? Like when you start at the result and then you work it back, like deconstruct it back to there's a term for that where it's like reverse goal setting. You work from the result that you want, and then you see like, how did this occur, and like you kind of work it backwards so you can figure out what steps you need to take to like then get there again, type of thing.
Yeah.
I forget, I feel like there's a specific term for it, but that's really smart. Like, what's working for me here
it's a smart
that I can
idea.
apply.
Haven't managed to successfully do it because eating is still really hard for me. I am very much an emotional eater and cope with my feelings that way, and I've still struggled with that. It's not as easy as, like, honestly, going to the gym is pretty easy. Like, just setting your alarm, getting to the gym, it's a box I can check, and it's easy. It's the emotional eating, and then also like getting my schoolwork done requires a lot more mental, like getting to the gym. It's easy to just kind of, I mean, obviously physically there are things that are hard, but it's just like, it's something that I can do without having to think about it. And doing my school obviously is not that. And for some reason, my brain just doesn't want to do it right now. And I need to figure out how to motivate it in that same way. But it's very different than motivating my body. Yeah. But I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if that connected with what you were talking about at all. But, there's a little side thing that I've been thinking about a lot in this process. Is like, man, I wish I could have figured this out earlier, or I wish I'd started on this earlier. And that's true. But I also am like, I wish this wasn't true. Like, I am hoping this isn't true, but it's like, would I have been ready to actually take these things seriously, like, before now? Or did it take me dragging my feet and being really bad at all this stuff? Like, to get, and I'm acting like I'm a success story. I'm not a success story yet, but like, to feel this, like, to actually feel the motivation that's not just like, oh yes, like motivation in sparkle font versus motivation which is like, I'm gonna get up every day and do this. Yeah. Like,
motivation in Times New Roman font,
Is this the result of me just being so sick of failing over and over and over and over and over and over and again? Like, because like I have never been able to do this because to do anything, because I give up before I get anywhere. And so I'm like trying to catch this kind of lightning in a bottle a little bit for myself. Yeah. But it's like, I wish I could have just figured it out a long time ago, but it's also like, am I here partially because I am so like sick of myself and that realization of like, I've never been able to change because I just kind of thought change would happen, and I didn't treat it like I am the cause of the change.
Like, I'm responsible for
for the change. Yeah. I don't know, man. I feel kind of lost in that.
Yeah, and I think something that I have struggled with that a lot too, because I'm very much an all or nothing person. So either I'm changing everything all tomorrow when I wake up, or I'm not. There is no in between. There is no baby steps. There is no, like, it's a process, and I'm going to work towards the goal in a process. Like, no, like, I can just wake up tomorrow and decide to be a different person, and that'll work. It hasn't worked yet.
It hasn't worked yet. Honestly, like, I've been working really hard. I know that sounds dumb because it's just all in my head, but I used to be way worse of, like, every night I would be like, tomorrow is it. And I have a little bit of OCD. I was never formally diagnosed by a psychiatrist, but my counselor was like, hey, you might have OCD. And so I kind of just keep a pulse on that. Like, I don't treat myself like I have OCD, but I kind of know some skills and thought processes, and I'm also on an antidepressant that treats OCD, and I feel like that works pretty well for me. But I get into this obsessive kind of thought process of, like, all right, tomorrow I'll do it tomorrow, and here's what I'm doing. And I've done better about not doing that, but I did it last night. I was like, I had overeaten and emotionally eaten and kind of gotten off track with my diet, and I felt really bad. And so I'm like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be perfect.
Yeah. Right.
Tomorrow it's going to happen. And like it feels like old. Like, it doesn't feel like this works anymore. It feels like this kind of old habit of, like, I know this is not going to work, but I feel this, like, temptation to do it. And it's funny because, and I'm curious, we don't have to keep this in, but I'm curious if you notice a shift in my mood at any point during dinner. Because while I was cooking dinner, today's just not gone super great. I haven't changed magically overnight. And I also forgot to go for a walk, and then it was dark, and I was like, I didn't go for my walk.
Shoot.
I'm supposed to go for a walk every day. Yeah. And I still have a lot of school to do, and I was stressed about going to bed, and then I'm babysitting tomorrow, and so I just have a lot going on. And I just was like, just felt that anxiety, like, bubbling up of, like, today wasn't the day. Oh no. Like, just, there's not even words for it, of just this anxiety of, like, I am unable to change. I'm drowning. Everything is happening, and I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do the things.
That's funny. I had a twinge of that today too.
Really?
Yes. Because I was trying to organize a band rehearsal, and it just was falling apart. And I was like, I'm done. I quit. Like, this
never
is
doing music again. Goodbye. I don't even know where I was going with that. Oh, but I'm just trying to challenge myself to just, like, be okay with it, because I'm really not okay with it, like, in my head. And I think this is just me going to therapy now.
Please do.
I think part of me numbs out so hard because it bothers me so much when I don't do the things that I know I'm supposed to be doing. When I'm not eating well, when I'm not doing my school. And so I think I just numb out so hard. And the only, like, comfort to myself is, like, well, I'll do better tomorrow. And so I'm really, like, while I was making dinner and then sitting down to dinner, I'm just like, okay, like, how is this a productive first day, or, like, whatever, like, how do I just, because that's kind of how I stop the tomorrow thoughts, is I'm like, all right, like, today, what did I get done today is part of the journey. How was this contributing to my journey, kind of thing. Instead of just writing it off and being like, tomorrow. Because then
today's a wash.
My whole life is just going to be gone. 27 years of my life, Chris, has been gone because I'm like, today didn't count.
Tomorrow's where it's at. And tomorrow never comes.
It's like I could throw up talking about it. I didn't realize today was going to be so emotional for me. But I just, like, it's, I don't know what's wrong with me that it's, like, so hard for me to accept that, like, I didn't go for a walk today. And that was hard. Like, emotionally, I felt myself trying to leave the room, kind of like, you failed. Like, you failed, and we're just gonna give up, and tomorrow. And so I'm trying to, like, force myself back into today, of, like, today's part of it. How do I cope with that? Does anyone, do I sound crazy?
Is anyone listening?
Do I sound crazy?
No.
Well, I just, like, people have real problems out there in the world, and my problem is my pound of flesh floating in the soup of my skull. It just is so,
you know. Well, and I think this rings true for me, because I have been trying to do the same thing also, because I tend to do the thing where it's like, okay, if I'm, like, let's say I'm trying to count calories one day, and I I don't log all my meals. Like, let's say I log breakfast and lunch, and then I forget to log dinner, or I just don't get to it or whatever. Then I'm so tempted to like, well, while I'm not logging, let me just add all the
a little ice cream in here.
Seriously, because they don't count if you don't log them.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's like, well, no, you can't. Like, that's not gonna be. I don't know what that is. Where it's just like, oh, I failed. Okay.
Watch how hard I can fail.
Yeah,
even
but it's
more.
like, but what even is failing in that scenario? Because I just have had such a hard time accepting that like little small baby step, like simple changes are really the way to get to overall
it's the
change.
Only thing that works.
It literally is the only thing that works.
And I'm like, no, I'm going to find a new way that works.
I'm going to find the...
This has never worked before, but I'm going to make it work today.
I'm going to find the secret to unlocking a whole bunch of change and like just becoming who I want to be overnight.
Yeah.
And I'm going to accomplish that.
Even though I have no evidence that this will work in the slightest.
And somehow I'm going to accomplish that by churning this over and over in my head all day, every day. And just saying, tomorrow, it'll be tomorrow. And so I think another idea that I've been trying to implement into my thought process is that there are no bad days. Like, and when people said that before, I was like, screw you. Like, I want to be able to have a bad day here and there. Like, I get down, I get upset, I get sad, whatever. So you're going to tell me that I can't have any bad days? But when in reality, I don't know if everyone means this when they say it, but I think more of the sentiment behind it is like nothing is wasted. So like there are no bad days. Like you don't have even if you're failing one day, like it's not a waste and you're learning something in the failure of it. And like just even the fortitude to try to reorient your mind, like you said, like bring your body back into this room, into this present moment, like that's progress and that's growth. And so like there really are, you can look at it as like, oh, that day is a wash, blah, blah, blah. Or you can be like, no, like it all has its place and it's all valuable. And like, there are no bad days.
Well, do you know what my mom's like catchphrase is?
No, what?
So I still want to do this. I don't think my sisters listen to this podcast, but my sisters said they would get a matching tattoo with me and they have yet to do it.
Oh, yes.
So
I do remember this. Yeah.
Hopefully we're going to get this tattooed together as sisters one day. But my mom quotes this guy called Saint Ignatius. He's like an old saint from a long time ago.
Old wise dude.
She's really into those guys.
Yeah.
But my mom says it all the time, and it's all his gift. And it's exactly what you're saying of just like everything is worth something in this journey that God gives us. Yeah. And it's so funny because I was talking to her a few weeks ago because I was like, should I drop out of school? Because at this point, I've wasted a lot of time and money not doing well in my classes because I'm convinced I can take it. And then I just don't do well. And so I just have dealt with a lot of guilt and shame over that. But also just like I've pushed the graduation date out a full year at this point. So it's going to take me 5 years to get an undergrad, which is embarrassing. Hey, I know. Everyone's like, oh no, it's not that bad. It's embarrassing. Okay. I'm embarrassed about it. And so I was talking to my mom and I'm like, should I just quit? Like, should I just stop? Yeah. And she was like, well, like you can do whatever you want. Like, if you want to quit, like you can. And I was like, well, it just feels like such a big waste. You know, like it just feels like I want to quit, but I've wasted so much time and money and all this stuff. And she's like, well, like it's not wasted to me. She was like, you've learned all these things and you've learned more about yourself and all these things. And she's like, even if you don't graduate, like it still is all worthwhile. And then she was talking about that thing of like all his gift, you know, like it's all part of it. And I feel like it's just good to give that perspective of like, I don't know if I'm going to quit yet or not. I don't think I am. I'm still attempting to do it. Yeah. But like, she was very much like, even if you end up not wanting to do it, like it's not like a waste. Like it's still not, it still is worth something to your life to have come this far. Right. So yeah.
And I think now I am working on trying to sharpen the skill of like quote unquote bouncing back. Like, okay, like you had a bad night, the morning doesn't have to be bad. Like you can have a different more like just kind of trying to be more like a rubber band than like this like super
a paperweight.
Pretty much, yeah, like set me down for this year. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much, yeah, because I just went on vacation with my family this last week, so like my eating was all over the place. We weren't really working out at all, and it's been a little challenging trying to orient back into that. And it's like, okay, well, like just because it didn't happen the day after you got back doesn't mean you can't still
you
make
can
it
shorten
happen.
the time
Yeah.
by just kind of picking up a little bit.
Right? Like you can still go to the gym tomorrow, and like
Right.
you're still going back to the gym even though it wasn't like right.
But it's funny, it's because like in your brain you have to choose either the day after you get back or 2 weeks from now.
Or
like
it's like some weird
3 days after you get back from vacation is unacceptable. It has to be either day after or not at all.
The heck is that? Like
I don't know. I'm that way too. I don't know.
I don't know, but
I underestimated how much this conversation would make me want to throw up and cry.
Oh no. Oh, I remember. Do you think this has anything to do with responsibility? Like having issues with responsibility?
I don't know.
Because
Can you explain further?
Yeah, as you were talking a little while ago, the thought just dawned on me that I wonder if part of my procrastination or rebellion is just a different way of shirking responsibility. Because you were talking about if I don't make these changes, then they're not going to happen. Like I have to be the one to choose to make these changes. And I wonder if this like detached, at least what I have is like this detached fantasy me that I'll somehow evolve into someday, you know, that always lives
no effort from me whatsoever.
Like,
from current me. Current me has nothing to do with future me.
If I could just get up at 5 a.m. one morning, then it'll happen. Yeah. Like, it hasn't happened yet. So, yeah, it's like this detached fantasy me, but then it's also this like me that I've been in the past that I'm also dissatisfied with. And then there's like present me that's just, you know.
Well, it's because it's not real. It's absolutely just not real.
I know, right?
Because you know what? There was a time when I've been like, if I could just get to the gym every day.
Right.
If I could just, I get up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Guess what? I still feel lost.
Oh my gosh. Is that not the scariest thing?
It hasn't changed anything.
I was just talking to Evan about this. I was like, I see why we need purpose from God. Because I'm living in the middle of everything that I've been wanting for a couple years now, like going on vacation with my boyfriend to see my family, and like us going on this little road trip together, and we're spending a lot of time together, and you know, and there are parts in the weekend where I'm like, is this it? Like, is this all there is? And not in a bad way where
but
I'm like asking him for more, but it is this realization of, oh, like being married isn't gonna fulfill me in like all the ways I need to be fulfilled.
Preach.
Being able to
I don't mean that as a dig to my husband. I mean that as a very genuine.
It's like I think I have gotten trapped into fantasizing about certain future things that like, well, and is it good to be excited about things and be hopeful for things?
Sure.
Oh, obviously. But I genuinely think that I thought when I got married, I would like find this deeper purpose, or when I was in this fulfilling relationship that was like working how it's supposed to and is healthy, then I would feel this like peace or whatever. And it's like, nope. Like, it feels great and I'm super happy, but like there are these moments where I'm like,
if anything, when you're married, it's worse because when you feel any type of dissatisfaction,
there's
an edge of panic to it because you're like,
oh my gosh,
there's no escape hatch.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Like,
yeah.
And that has nothing to do with your partner. That has everything to do with you.
Just your own. And so I'm like, I see how empty these things are when I'm putting all of the emphasis of like becoming who I want to be on my circumstance. Like, I'll be who I want to be when I have X, or when I start doing X. And it's like, okay, well, I could lose my legs in a car accident tomorrow and like not be able to run a half marathon. So what am I going to do then if I'm pinning my whole identity on being able to accomplish this thing? And so, yeah, like, I think it is what you're talking about, of being more concerned with the heart issue of things and not so much about behavior modification. I think that has really been a game changer for me personally. And I've seen the most change in my life, like the most consistent change that keeps coming back, even when I'm like slipping a little bit, or I have a, you know, a week where it's like, okay, like I didn't get to this week, but like I'm revisiting the change way more consistently now, because I am more focused on like the heart issues of it, and not just like, come on, Chris, like you can do this, like you can behave this way and you don't have to behave that way. And that just doesn't seem to work for me, because and I think that even circles back to the whole accountability thing, because I don't have someone asking me about like, hey, how's your identity going? Or like, what's your identity? What do you feel like you're putting your identity in? Or what do you feel like you're putting your hopes and your trust in? It's like, hey, how are you doing with, you know, watching porn this week? And it's like, that's just behavior modification,
right?
You know, and it's not like, and I don't think that's their fault. Like, I don't think it's the fault of the people who, but I also haven't really known to ask those questions in the way that I needed to ask them. But now I'm figuring out how to do it. And like you said, like I can see kind of the most like consistent change that I've had in years. So, I don't know. Like, I wonder if part of it is like this not wanting to assume responsibility. Because if I don't assume responsibility for my change, then I can't really be that mad at myself at the end of the road when like it didn't happen, because it wasn't like quote unquote my responsibility.
I've heard you talk a little bit of that, too. Yeah, about the end of the road. Like, if things don't happen, it's not really your fault. But we've never really talked about it in that way. I think for me, it's different, which is
it
really
okay?
funny.
Yeah,
I think I've had. No, but no, I think like the thoughts that are coming up just during this conversation is like, I really feel like for me, it comes from not wanting to be uncomfortable, which is so lame. I hate that. I wish I had a cooler reason for being the way that I am.
Well,
but I think that I just have a huge disdain for feeling uncomfortable and doing hard things.
Yes.
And so I think for me, it's just a major avoidance of, I want to be successful, but getting off this couch would be really hard. So no. But it also, like, I can't fail if I never do it. And so it's a little bit of like, for me, the two things that kind of come up are like a desire to be successful, and like it would be too painful if I wasn't successful. So it's easier to just like not try. But also, like, yeah, I don't want to deal with that pain if I'm not successful at this thing. And also, being successful requires a lot of me. Yeah. And I don't know if I'm willing to give that. And also, realizing how lazy you are genuinely on a spiritual level is just, like, the worst.
It is really
like,
the worst.
I have no cute struggles. I just have, like, ugly butthole struggles. Like, you know, like, there's girls that are like, I just struggle with how, like, I don't know, like, I struggle with, like, just not being able to give my all to God. Or, like, I struggle with reading my Bible too much and it's an idol. And, like, I literally am the laziest human that has ever humaned. Yeah. And I just genuinely suck, and I have to figure out how to not do that.
There are nights where I lay in bed. I'm laying in my nice, comfy, warm bed and getting ready to fall asleep, and I have a twinge of, like, I should pray. And then I'm like, no, I don't want to say words in my head. That's too much. But I'll keep thinking about how I should be praying, and I'll keep saying words to myself in my head, but I'm not going to say words to God in my head. Like, right. What is that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It is.
Wow, this is really helping me. I just feel like going to bed and never getting up.
But I think part of that, though, is I think I'm starting to come to this point of like, maybe I need to redefine success in my life.
Well, I honestly was thinking about this while you were talking, because there is another thing that has kind of been floating in my head the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
I'm not looking at anything
okay.
specific.
All right.
I'm just looking at a point that's not your eyes.
Oh, okay. Her eyes are like darting to the window that's right beside my head, and I'm like, and it's dark outside, so I'm like, is there a person out there?
You can close the blinds if you want to.
It's fine.
But I have realized that a lot of my life has been consumed by the idea of self-improvement. And I think that part of that is just my personality and maybe a little bit of that OCD I was talking about. But I also think there's a little bit of that just got really flared up growing up in a hyper religious environment where kind of not necessarily self-improvement, but getting better, becoming a better person is really highly valued. I mean, I think most people value becoming a better person. Yeah. But I think especially in Christian circles, which is a fine thing. Like, this isn't a bad thing in and of itself, but it's like growing in your walk with Christ, becoming closer with God. And in my head, I'm like, that means I'll be better. Right. That means that as I do these things, I will become more perfect. Yeah. And
that means I will never miss a day of devotionals. That means I will never,
like, I'm working towards this goal that doesn't really exist, because it's like, I'm not going to reach this pinnacle of being a good Christian.
And how do you define closeness to God? Like, there are people who can do their devos every day, and they could not be further from communicating with God.
Away from me, like, I never knew you, which is like, if you grew up in church, makes you poop your pants a little bit.
It still makes me poop my pants.
Absolutely. You know what has caused, side note, you know what I still think about all the time? What? And causes me so much anxiety as a child.
Not getting into Narnia.
Yes, that too. But no, this is from the Bible. The parable of the seeds, like, among the different terrains, and it's like, one fell on fertile soil and grew and was great. One fell on the rocks and grew a little bit, but then was choked out. Oh no! And like all this thing, and I always, ever since I was a child and first heard it, have been stressed that I am a seed that's like growing, but will be choked out.
That is so interesting, because I have thought numerous times about how you posed the question of like, what if I'm Judas? Like, what if I'm Jonah? Yeah. Like, those people have to exist, and what if I'm them?
I think that all the time. Yeah. I think, and I'm like, well, God like closed Pharaoh's heart, like hardened Pharaoh's heart to all these things. What if he just lets me become a terrible person? Right. And it's just part of the story, and I have to play my part in the story. That's like a lot of religious anxiety.
Genuinely don't know about that one.
I don't know. Like, and I feel like, and people say like, well, because there's a lot of times that people will say, because I'm self-aware that it's not me. Like, I've been like, there's one that's like, don't blaspheme the Holy Spirit. It's not the one that Tyler was talking about on Sunday, but there's one that's like, the only thing that can separate you from God is like blaspheming the Holy Spirit. Yeah. And I remember asking my mom, like, how do you do that? Because I don't want to do it on accident. Yeah. And she's like, the fact that you're worried about it means that you're not going to do it. And I'm like, that makes no sense.
Right. Like, still, no.
I'm still so stressed about that.
I can be aware of, you know, this step right in front of me, and I can still trip over it.
Right. And like, so I'm like, what does that mean for me? And that makes it really, that's a hard thing mentally for me right now. Sure. But, like I said, like I feel like my real like motivator throughout my teen years and early 20s has been like self-improvement. How do I get better? How do I be better?
How do I not get choked out?
Right.
Like, you know,
and like, I just want to be a good person. I want to be a great person. Even I don't think I would ever say this, because it would be crappy of me to say this, but like, I want to be better than other people.
Oh, in some ways. 100%. You know, I want to be the exception to the rule.
Right.
I want to be,
like,
for sure.
And I will be completely honest. I do think that there were like, most of the time where those desires were really pure, but that is a thought. It wasn't like, oh, this is my motivating thought, is to be better than other people, but it definitely crosses my mind.
It does cross your mind. Well,
which is funny, because we were even talking about that we were talking about plastic surgery earlier today. We were talking about how it's not a moral issue, but for some reason it feels better to be like not natural.
Or it feels better to be against it, unless you have a quote unquote valid
Right.
reason for it.
Like, it somehow is this moralizing issue of like, well, getting plastic surgery isn't wrong, but you're kind of better if you don't have it.
Yeah,
You know?
like-
And it's like, I definitely have just think that way and function that way sometimes because that's like, I need to be better.
Yeah.
I need to be a better person.
Yeah.
I still haven't unpacked all of that. But what I'm saying is like, I think part of the freeze state that I'm in my life where I'm unable to do anything or accomplish anything is, I think, a little bit of a response to, I can't really self-improve because I see how crappy I am. And so it's like the only way I can kind of stop the crappy is by just not doing anything at all. You know, because like, I don't have it in me to continue to try to self-improve because I know how futile that is.
Right.
So it's like, I might as well just, I think my body is just like, and we're just not going to try.
It's money bags.
What?
The money bags parable. Where
about the hiding in the dirt.
Yeah. That's what
people
it is.
who don't know the Bible are going to be so confused.
Like, what the heck?
The guy who hid his money in the dirt because he was too afraid to invest it
and risk it and lose it or not grow it enough.
Right.
And so he just hid it in the ground, and that was not received very well.
Right. I'm
but
just going to go to bed. Good night. I really don't enjoy this.
Then it's like, is that like, am I playing that part in this story? Like,
I don't know.
Am
I predestined to play that person?
Right.
I'm not going to curse too much, but that F's me up too, is like the fact that we can even sit here and muse on all these things is like such a privilege.
Right.
And like, there are people who don't know where their next meal is coming from. And it's like, wow, that must be nice for you to like be able to sit in your home and wonder about your place in the universe. And it really makes me upset that like so many people like we have this thing like, well, they just don't understand the gospel or the Bible or all these things, when it's like, who has the emotional energy to try to understand all these things when you're just trying to survive?
Right.
Like and I like, I don't know, I just have a lot of questions about understanding the Bible and the gospel when like there's so much like going on in the physical realm that needs addressing, and yet like I come from a family, which I love my family and there's no shade or anything towards them or the people that I grew up with, but I come from a very privileged home and area and life where we can all afford to sit around and think about what the Bible means and interpret it in the Greek and whatever, what's my place in the universe. And it's like, that's not how the world functions. And so it's like, it feels like it feels emotionally like so heavy to even like try to wrestle with these things when it's like, I don't know, it just is like, does this even really matter? Or like, should I put my attention towards solving these other problems?
Right.
Anyway, that's a whole other thing. Guys, I am mentally and emotionally exhausted. This is the anxiety that I just have rolling around in my brain all day.
Well, it is a lot to try to not only figure out what you personally believe, but then like, how does that ripple out into like world issues and community issues, and you know, it's a lifelong thing that will change.
I've tapped out of this conversation. That is not what I wanted to talk about.
Oh my gosh.
Me fully leading into this conversation. This is not what I want to talk about.
But also,
like, I didn't get to choose what we talked about.
Oh. Well, I mean, that's good soup.
That's good soup.
It's all good soup. It's all gift.
All
No
is
bad
good
days.
soup.
All is good soup.
Gonna amend my tattoo. All is good soup.
Oh my gosh. All right. If you follow us on Instagram, this is impromptu, so I don't really know where I'm going with this. But if you follow us on Instagram, write us in, tell us what you thought about the Australian breakdancer for the Olympics.
So good.
Or tell us your favorite Olympic events, sportsmanlike conduct, all the good stuff.
Okay.
Warm sportsman moments, sportsmanship moments.
Warm sportsman moments.
Yeah.
What do you know about warm sportsman moments? You gotta be real gentle with them. What else did you say?
I don't know.
So they don't break apart or something?
Also, well, maybe we don't want to say that.
No, we don't.
I'll say this nondescriptly. I learned about sperm and penises today, and it was very informative.
This is just like a not safe for work episode. Warning, we're going to be talking about religion, politics, and genitalia in today's episode. Please, for the love of God, hide your children.
All right. But seriously, let us know what your favorite Olympics highlights were. Maybe we'll talk about that next week.
A little lighter episode.
Yeah, a little light soup.
I'll try to chain my demons up a little bit. What? Is that so funny to you?
It's just a funny imagery. I don't know.
My dogs are barking.
All right.
Fear and fear and trembling. Those are my demons.
All right. Well, my throat is bleeding, so I think we've sufficiently wheezed for today.
All right.
All right.
Signing off.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.